The color drained from the man's face almost immediately. For several seconds, he simply stood there behind the pillar, gripping his phone tightly. The confidence he had carried all morning vanished, replaced by something far more troubling. Fear. Real fear. People like him were not easily frightened. He had spent years doing dangerous assignments for powerful individuals. He had threatened witnesses, destroyed evidence, delivered messages nobody wanted to receive. Yet whatever the voice on the other end of the call had just told him seemed to shake him deeply. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. The answer came instantly. His eyes widened, then widened even further. "No." The word escaped his lips before he could stop it. Down below, none of us noticed him. All our attention remained fixed on the wooden box sitting inside the locker. The box looked ancient, older than anything we had found so far. Its surface was covered in scratches and marks left behind by time. The edges had darkened with age. The brass fittings were faded. Yet despite the years, it remained intact, almost as though someone had taken great care to preserve it. Ngozi stared at it with trembling eyes. Memories were clearly flooding back. Painful memories. Forgotten memories. Memories she never expected to revisit. Chief Adewale turned toward her. "You know this box?" Ngozi nodded slowly. "Very well." The tension around us increased. Nobody interrupted. Nobody wanted to miss a single word. Ngozi swallowed hard. Then she spoke. "Your grandfather carried this box everywhere." My heart immediately skipped. "Everywhere?" She nodded. "People used to joke about it." A faint smile crossed her face. "He never allowed anybody touch it." Her expression quickly faded again. "He treated it like treasure." The word settled heavily in my mind. Treasure. Not money. Not gold. Something else. Something important enough to protect for decades. Papa B stepped closer. "What was inside?" Ngozi looked at him, then shook her head. Nobody knew. The answer surprised everyone. "Not even my mother knew," she continued. "Not even your mother." That statement hit me hard. If my own mother never knew what was inside, then whatever secret the box contained had existed long before her troubles began. Long before the inheritance battle. Long before the conspiracy. Long before my disappearance. The realization made my skin crawl. The story was growing larger with every discovery. Far larger. Chief Adewale slowly exhaled. Then looked toward me. His voice was calm, but serious. "Open it." The words echoed in my ears. Open it. Simple words. Yet they felt heavier than anything else. My hands suddenly became cold. The box seemed almost alive sitting there, as though it understood its moment had finally arrived. For years. For decades. It had waited. Now the waiting was over. Slowly, I reached forward. My fingers touched the lid. The wood felt rough beneath my skin. The entire group leaned closer. Even the noises of the terminal seemed distant now. Nothing else mattered. Only the box. Only the truth. Only the answers hidden inside. Taking a deep breath, I lifted the lid. The hinges groaned softly. Dust floated into the air. And finally, the contents became visible. A collective gasp swept through the group. Because inside the box was not one item. There were several. Carefully arranged. Protected. Preserved. Waiting. At the very top sat an old leather-bound journal. Its cover had faded with age. Yet one thing remained visible. A name. Embossed in gold lettering. Adewale. My heart nearly stopped. The journal belonged to my grandfather. Beneath it rested a stack of sealed envelopes tied together with ribbon. Under those envelopes sat several photographs. And beneath everything else, a small cassette tape. The sight immediately confused everyone. A cassette tape. Chief Adewale frowned. Why would someone hide a cassette tape for so many years? Nobody had an answer. But something about it felt important. Very important. Ngozi's eyes suddenly widened. Then she began shaking. Not slightly. Violently. As though she had seen a ghost. Impossible. The whisper barely left her lips. I looked at her immediately. What is it? She pointed toward the cassette. Her finger trembling. That tape. The fear in her voice made my stomach tighten. What about it? For a moment she couldn't speak. Then finally the words came. Your mother was looking for that tape before she died. The words seemed to stop. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. The statement hung in the air like thunder before a storm. My mother had been searching for the tape. Searching desperately enough that Ngozi still remembered it decades later. Suddenly the cassette became the most important object in the box. Perhaps the most important object we had found so far. Chief Adewale carefully picked it up. Dust coated the plastic casing. The label attached to it had yellowed with age. But a few handwritten words remained visible. He squinted, trying to read them. Then his expression changed completely. Shock. Pure shock. What is it? Papa B asked immediately. Chief Adewale stared at the label. Then looked at me. Then back at the label again. As though hoping he had read it incorrectly. Finally he spoke. The words emerged almost as a whisper. It's a recording. Nobody responded. Everyone waited. His voice grew even quieter. A recording of a meeting. My pulse quickened. What meeting? Chief Adewale swallowed hard. Then read the faded words written across the label. Private board meeting. The terminal suddenly felt too warm. Too crowded. Too small. Because everyone understood what that meant. A recording. Not rumors. Not suspicions. Not accusations. A recording. Actual voices. Actual conversations. Actual evidence. And if the people responsible for my mother's death had attended that meeting, then the cassette could contain everything. Names. Plans. Confessions. The truth. The complete truth. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Bintu whispered the question all of us were thinking. Can we listen to it? The group exchanged glances. Excitement mixed with fear. Hope mixed with dread. Because once we listened, there would be no going back. No more uncertainty. No more guessing. Only truth. And sometimes truth was more frightening than lies. Meanwhile, above us, the man in the brown cap watched everything unfold. His breathing had become uneven. His hands trembled slightly. The person on the phone was still speaking. Still issuing instructions. Still demanding updates. Finally, he interrupted. His voice shook. They found the tape. Silence followed. Then the voice on the other end asked a single question. A question that made the blood drain from his face. Did they discover who made the recording? The man looked down toward the box again. Toward the journal. Toward the envelopes. Toward the cassette. Then he answered quietly. Not yet. A long pause followed. Then the voice replied. Then stop them. The call ended. And for the first time since this story began, death started moving toward us faster than the truth. The atmosphere inside the terminal changed without any of us realizing it. While we stood around the locker, overwhelmed by the discoveries hidden inside the old wooden box, danger was already drawing closer. Closer than any of us imagined. Closer than any of us were prepared for. The man in the brown cap slipped his phone into his pocket and adjusted his shirt nervously. The instruction he had received was clear. There was no room for misunderstanding. No room for excuses. No room for failure. He had worked for powerful men long enough to understand what happened to people who failed them. Especially when secrets were involved. Especially when those secrets had survived for decades. His eyes drifted toward me. Then toward the cassette tape. Then toward the journal. A look of desperation crossed his face. Whatever was inside those items frightened the people behind him far more than we realized. And when powerful people become afraid, they rarely act with mercy. They act with force. Downstairs, Chief Adewale carefully returned the cassette to the box. His face was tense. Very tense. The excitement from moments earlier had been replaced by caution. Years of experience had taught him something important. Finding evidence was one thing. Protecting it was another matter entirely. And sometimes, protecting it was much harder. He looked around the group. We cannot stay here. Nobody argued. The terminal was crowded. Open. Unpredictable. Anyone could be watching. Anyone could be listening. Anyone could be reporting our movements. The discovery of the locker had already attracted enough attention. Remaining there any longer would be foolish. Papa B nodded immediately. We should leave. The suited men agreed. Even Gozi, who could not stop staring at the journal, reluctantly accepted. The box was quickly secured. The envelopes. The journal. The cassette. The key. Everything was placed inside a large travel bag. Nobody wanted to risk leaving anything behind. Not now. Not after coming this far. Not after surviving so much. As we prepared to leave, I glanced back at locker 27. For years it had guarded my family's secrets. Now it stood empty. Its purpose fulfilled. Its burden passed on to us. A strange feeling settled inside me. Almost as though we had crossed an invisible line. There was no turning back anymore. The truth was no longer hidden. We had touched it. Held it. Claimed it. And somewhere, powerful people were beginning to panic. The journey back from the terminal felt different. Nobody talked much. Nobody laughed. Nobody shared stories. The weight of the discovery sat heavily on everyone. Bintu stared out of the window. Lost in thought. Mama beheld her prayer beads tightly. Whispering silent prayers under her breath. Papa B remained unusually quiet. His eyes fixed on the road ahead. Even Chief Adewale seemed distracted. As though his mind was racing through possibilities. Questions. Connections. Memories. The only sound inside the vehicle came from the engine and the endless traffic of Lagos. Finally, after what felt like forever, Chief Adewale broke the silence. We need somewhere safe. The statement immediately drew everyone's attention. A place nobody will think to search. One of the suited men nodded. I know somewhere. Chief Adewale looked at him. The man hesitated briefly before speaking. My late father's house. The others waited. It's abandoned. He continued carefully. No staff. No neighbors nearby. No visitors. No attention. The suggestion made sense. The fewer people who knew about the evidence, the better. Chief Adewale agreed immediately. Take us there. The man nodded. And the vehicle changed direction. The abandoned house stood at the edge of an old neighborhood. The building was large but weathered. Time had left its marks everywhere. Paint peeled from the walls. The gates creaked loudly. Grass had grown high around the compound. Yet despite its neglected appearance, the house offered something valuable. Privacy. The moment we entered, everyone felt slightly more relaxed. Not safe. Not completely. But safer. The travel bag containing the evidence was placed carefully on a table in the sitting room. Nobody took their eyes off it. It had become the center of everything. The object around which all our lives now revolved. Chief Adewale locked every door personally. Then checked every window. Then checked them again. Only after satisfying himself did he finally sit down. The room fell silent. The bag remained on the table between us. Waiting. Almost challenging us. Open me. Learn the truth. Face whatever comes next. Finally, Ngozi spoke. We should start with the journal. Everyone agreed. The cassette would require a player. The envelopes could wait. But the journal? The journal might provide context. Might explain everything. Or at least point us in the right direction. Carefully, Chief Adewale removed it from the bag. The leather cover looked even older under proper lighting. The gold lettering had faded considerably. Yet the name remained visible. Adewale. My grandfather. A man whose shadow seemed to stretch across every discovery. Chief Adewale opened the journal slowly. The pages crackled softly. Yellowed by age. Fragile. Precious. The first few pages contained ordinary entries. Business notes. Appointments. Personal reflections. Nothing alarming. Nothing dramatic. Nothing worth killing for. But as he continued turning pages, his expression slowly changed. Confusion. Then concern. Then disbelief. He stopped suddenly. The room immediately became alert. What is it? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reread the page. Then read it again. As though hoping he had misunderstood. Finally he looked up. His face had lost color. What does it say? Bintu asked. Chief Adewale swallowed hard. Then read aloud. Today I discovered that the foundation of the company was built on a lie. The room froze. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The sentence landed like a thunderbolt. A lie. Not a mistake. Not an error. A lie. Chief Adewale continued reading. His voice growing quieter with each word. The men involved believe the secret will die with them. They believe money can bury the truth forever. They are wrong. A chill swept through the room. Even Papa B sat straighter. The words felt dangerous. Very dangerous. Because they sounded exactly like the beginning of something much bigger. Something far older. Something far more powerful. Chief Adewale turned the page. Then suddenly stopped again. This time his reaction was even stronger. His hand visibly shook. The journal nearly slipped from his fingers. What happened? Ngozi asked. He stared at the page. Speechless. Completely speechless. The silence stretched. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Finally he looked directly at me. His eyes filled with shock. Then he whispered the words that changed everything once again. Binta. My heart pounded. Yes. He swallowed hard. Then slowly turned the journal around so everyone could see the page. At the center of it was an old photograph. A photograph none of us had expected. A photograph showing 3 men standing together. Smiling. Celebrating. One of them was my grandfather. The second was a face Chief Adewale immediately recognized. And the third man was someone we all believed had died more than 20 years ago. Someone whose death had never been questioned. Someone whose funeral had been attended by hundreds of people. Someone whose grave still existed. Yet according to the note written beneath the photograph, that man had never died at all. He had disappeared. And he was still alive. For several long seconds, nobody spoke. The room became so quiet that the distant chirping of crickets outside sounded unusually loud. Every eye remained fixed on the photograph. Every mind struggled to process the impossible revelation sitting before us. The man in the picture was someone all of us knew. Someone whose story had become part of local history. A respected figure. A powerful figure. A man whose supposed death had been accepted without question. Yet there he was. Standing beside my grandfather. Very much alive. Very much real. And beneath the photograph, written in my grandfather's careful handwriting, were words that sent another wave of shock through the room. The most dangerous man in Nigeria is the one everybody believes is dead. Papa B immediately stood up. No. His voice shook. No, no, no. Mama B stared at him. What is it? Papa B looked terrified. Genuinely terrified. The kind of fear that comes from recognizing a danger you hoped never to face again. Slowly, he lowered himself back into his chair. Then rubbed both hands across his face. I know that handwriting. The room turned toward him. My heartbeat quickened. What do you mean? Papa B swallowed. Then pointed at the note. Years ago. He paused. As though wrestling with a memory. Many years ago, somebody showed me a document carrying those exact words. The silence deepened. Chief Adewale leaned forward. Who showed it to you? Papa B hesitated. For the first time since we had met him, he seemed reluctant to answer. Almost ashamed. Finally, he sighed heavily. The priest. Everyone frowned. The priest. Papa B nodded slowly. The priest who raised you after you disappeared. My heart nearly stopped. Father Matthew. The elderly priest who had sheltered me briefly before I ended up working at the salon. The man who had always treated me kindly. The man who had encouraged me to believe in myself when nobody else did. The man who had died several years earlier. At least. That was what I had been told. Chief Adewale's eyes widened. What exactly did Father Matthew tell you? Papa B looked uncomfortable. He told me if anything ever happened to him, I should protect Binta. My stomach tightened. Why didn't you tell me this before? His eyes filled with guilt. Because I thought it was only the fear of an old man. He shook his head. I never imagined he knew something. Ngozi suddenly stood up. The movement startled everyone. Her breathing had become uneven. Almost panicked. I remember now. All eyes shifted toward her. I remember. What? Ngozi pressed a trembling hand against her forehead. As though forcing old memories to return. Your mother visited Father Matthew. My pulse jumped. What? Twice. The room froze. Maybe 3 times. She nodded slowly. Yes. Her voice grew stronger. 3 times. The implications hit us immediately. My mother had known Father Matthew. Father Matthew had known something about the conspiracy. And somehow, decades later, he had found me. None of it felt accidental anymore. None of it. The pieces were beginning to connect. And the picture they formed was becoming frightening. Chief Adewale quickly flipped through more pages of the journal. His urgency was obvious now. The journal was no longer simply a family record. It was evidence. Potentially explosive evidence. Page after page revealed fragments of a hidden story. Secret meetings. Strange financial transactions. Names of influential people. References to land deals. Political connections. Missing funds. Buried investigations. The deeper we read, the darker everything became. Then suddenly, a folded document slipped from between two pages. It landed softly on the floor. Everyone stared. Nobody moved. Chief Adewale bent down and picked it up carefully. The paper was old. Very old. Folded so many times that the edges had become fragile. He opened it slowly. Then frowned. "What is it?" I asked. His eyes scanned the document. Then widened dramatically. "Oh God." My heart immediately sank. "What now?" Without speaking, he handed the paper to me. I looked down. And nearly dropped it. Because the document was a birth certificate. Not unusual by itself. But the name printed on it changed everything. The child's name was familiar. Painfully familiar. Shockingly familiar. The child was not me. The child was not Bintu. The child was not anyone in our family. The name belonged to one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. A man currently celebrated as a self-made success story. A man whose face appeared regularly on television. A man respected across Nigeria. Yet according to the document in my hands, everything people believed about him was a lie. His real parents were different. His identity was different. His entire public story was fabricated. The room exploded with confusion. How is that possible? Who changed it? Why? Questions flew from every direction. But nobody had answers. Then Ngozi noticed something else. Her eyes narrowed. She grabbed the certificate. Examined it closely. Then suddenly gasped. "What?" She pointed toward the father's name. The room leaned closer. And then everyone saw it. The father listed on the birth certificate was my grandfather. Silence. Absolute silence. The revelation struck like lightning. Nobody knew what to say. Nobody knew what to think. Because if the document was genuine, then one of the most powerful businessmen in Nigeria was secretly connected to my family. Connected to the conspiracy. Connected to everything. And perhaps worst of all, connected to my mother's death. Outside the abandoned house, darkness had completely settled. The street appeared empty. Quiet. Peaceful. But appearances were deceiving. Parked several houses away sat a silver sedan. Its lights were off. Its engine silent. Inside were two men. Watching. Waiting. Listening through a small device attached beneath one of the windows. The man in the brown cap sat in the passenger seat. Sweat covered his forehead. His confidence was gone. Completely gone. The discoveries happening inside the house were spiraling beyond anyone's control. Even his employers. Even the people giving orders. The driver looked at him nervously. "What do we do now?" The brown-capped man remained silent. The driver repeated the question. "What do we do?" Finally, the man answered. His voice barely above a whisper. "We run." The driver stared at him. "What?" "We run." The driver laughed nervously. "Run from who?" The brown-capped man slowly turned toward him. The fear in his eyes was unmistakable. Then he spoke the sentence that would change the direction of the entire investigation. "We are not working for the people who killed Binta's mother." The driver frowned. Confused. "What do you mean?" The man swallowed hard. Then looked toward the house. Toward the evidence. Toward the truth finally emerging after decades. And then he said, "We've been working for the wrong side all along." The words hung heavily inside the silver sedan. For several moments, the driver simply stared at the man beside him. Certain he had heard incorrectly. Certain there had been some mistake. But the expression on the brown-capped man's face left no room for doubt. He was serious. Completely serious. The driver shook his head slowly. No. The response came almost automatically. As though rejecting the possibility would somehow make it untrue. No. The brown-capped man looked exhausted. Like someone carrying a burden that had become too heavy to bear. I wish I was wrong. The driver frowned. What are you talking about? The man leaned back in his seat. Then stared through the windshield into the darkness. For the first time in years, he decided to tell the truth. The people paying us. He paused. The people giving the orders. Another pause. They are not protecting themselves. The driver remained silent. Listening carefully. They are protecting somebody else. A cold feeling settled inside the vehicle. The driver could already sense that he wasn't going to like what came next. And he was right. Very right. The brown-capped man swallowed hard. Then continued. The real mastermind was never among them. His voice dropped lower. Not even close. The driver's stomach tightened. Then who is it? The answer came softly. Almost as a whisper. Someone nobody suspects. Inside the abandoned house, we were still trying to process the shocking discovery hidden inside my grandfather's journal. The birth certificate lay on the table. The photograph remained beside it. The journal itself sat open. Each item raising more questions than answers. Each discovery making the mystery deeper. More complicated. More dangerous. Chief Adewale paced slowly around the room. Something was bothering him. I could see it clearly. His mind was working. Connecting pieces. Testing possibilities. Searching for something he had overlooked. Then suddenly, he stopped. Completely. The movement caught everyone's attention. His eyes widened. Then he turned toward Ngozi. Ngozi. She looked up. Yes. The businessman. She frowned. What about him? Chief Adewale pointed toward the birth certificate. How old is he? The question seemed strange. Yet something about it immediately made everyone think. Ngozi hesitated. Then answered. I think he's around 40. Chief Adewale nodded slowly. Then looked toward me. His face had become pale. Very pale. My heartbeat accelerated. What is it? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked toward the table. Picked up the certificate. And checked the date again. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then finally he spoke. The ages don't match. The room froze. What do you mean? I asked. Chief Adewale looked directly at me. The certificate says this child was born several years before your grandfather got married. Nobody reacted immediately. Not because the information wasn't important. But because nobody understood where he was going. Then suddenly. Understanding hit. Like lightning. If the birth certificate was genuine. Then the businessman wasn't simply connected to our family. He was connected through a secret relationship. A hidden relationship. One that had been concealed for decades. The implications were enormous. Especially in families where inheritance, reputation, and power mattered. Which in Nigeria often meant everything. Papa B slowly shook his head. Meaning somebody has been hiding the truth since the beginning. Chief Adewale nodded. Exactly. Ngozi sat down heavily. Her face filled with disbelief. My God. The room grew quiet again. Because the more we learned, the clearer one thing became. The conspiracy wasn't only about money. It wasn't only about inheritance. It wasn't only about business. It was about family. Family secrets. The most dangerous kind. Meanwhile, Bintu had remained unusually quiet. Almost too quiet. At first, nobody noticed. Everyone was focused on the journal. The photographs. The documents. The revelations. But eventually Mama B looked toward her daughter. And frowned. Bintu. No answer. Bintu was staring at something. Something inside the wooden box. Something everyone else had overlooked. Her eyes remained fixed on a small corner compartment hidden beneath the journal. A compartment nobody had opened. A compartment nobody had even noticed. Slowly, she pointed. What is that? The room immediately turned. Chief Adewale bent down. Carefully examined the box. Then frowned. Bintu was right. There was a hidden section. Very well concealed. Almost invisible. My pulse quickened. Another secret. Another hidden clue. The box seemed determined to keep surprising us. Chief Adewale pressed gently against the wooden panel. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. Then Ngozi stepped forward. Her eyes narrowed. For a moment she studied the box. Then suddenly smiled. A sad smile. A nostalgic smile. I remember. Everyone looked at her. My father used to own something similar. She reached forward. Pressed a tiny brass pin near one corner. Click. The hidden compartment sprang open. A collective gasp filled the room. Because inside was something none of us expected. A small stack of cassette tapes. Not one. Not two. Several. Each carefully labeled. Each neatly arranged. And each carrying dates stretching across many years. The room exploded with shock. There wasn't just one recording. There were many. Dozens of conversations. Dozens of meetings. Dozens of secrets. Potentially decades of evidence. Enough evidence to destroy reputations. Enough evidence to collapse empires. Enough evidence to rewrite history. Chief Adewale looked stunned. Papa B looked stunned. Even Ngozi appeared overwhelmed. Then Mama B picked up one of the tapes. The oldest one. Its label had faded badly. But a few words remained visible. She squinted. Trying to read them. Then suddenly her hands began shaking. Violently. The tape nearly slipped from her fingers. Mama. Bintu whispered. Mama B looked terrified. Terrified in a way none of us had ever seen before. Her lips trembled. Her eyes filled with fear. Then she whispered the words that instantly changed the mood inside the room. This tape. She swallowed hard. Was recorded the night Binta disappeared. Silence. Pure silence. The kind of silence that arrives when a truth everyone has been chasing suddenly stands directly in front of them. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The night I disappeared. The night my life changed forever. The night that had haunted every person in this story. The night nobody had fully explained. The night buried beneath decades of lies. And now, somewhere inside that tape, the truth was waiting. Waiting for us to press play.